Hey friends, welcome back to In the Bin. Thanks for tuning in. Today, actually, we're going to go in the box. Super Fresh Growers, on average, ships about 20 to 25 million cases of fruit, be it apples, cherries, pears, or blueberries. We move a lot of fruit, and all that fruit goes out the door in a corrugate box. Today, I have Gary Rinsberg and Ben Schultz from HR Spinners. They're one of our leading suppliers of packaging goods, and also things like corner boards, pallet wraps, glue, tape, you name it, they sell it, and they service all of our different packing facilities, and they do a great job. Also, before we get into the episode, I want to give a quick shout out to the rest of the team on In the Bin. I just get to talk to people, but our teammates like Brock behind the cameras doing fantastic work, and Julieta and Brenna on the marketing team are kicking butt on social media. So I couldn't do this without them. Hope you enjoy the episode. All right. So, Domex and HR Spinners have been doing business together since before I was here, probably before you were at Spinners. I mean, can't imagine 5 decades, 6 decades, you think? How long?
At least, yeah. Got to be that long.
And so did Spinners start when apples were shipped in wood crates? Where did Spinners, what was day one at HR Spinners? What were you selling or providing?
Day one at HR Spinner was in 1916. The company was founded in 1916. We celebrated our 100-year anniversary year just a couple years ago. And Spinner was started to make wooden shook, as they called it. And a lot of what we did was we brought the wood in, assembled it into made-up boxes, and delivered it to the customers for use.
You had guys that were nailing boxes together.
Yep, hand nailing.
You would ship a stacked crate basically to the warehouses.
Yep, they'd sort of nest them together and ship them out. Hand nailed it first, and the big innovation was when they brought machines in to where they could just kind of foot pedal it and nail them together, and that's nail them together. That's how HR Spinner started in 1916.
Did you guys make those machines, or was it like
another? Didn't make the machines then. No, that was just purchased.
And so when I actually don't even know, I should know this given my role, but when did they transition from wooden crates to corrugate?
Mid-50s.
Mid-50s? Wow.
Mid-50s.
Okay. Is that when you started it?
No, I wasn't even born then, but thanks for asking.
I had to slip it.
Yeah, I know.
That's the only one, I promise.
Well, I kind of got when you asked about the history of Spinner, like I've been there since the beginning or something.
Notice how I asked you.
I didn't get wheeled in here. Yeah. So, I think it was 1956 or 7 or something is when they made the official transition from wooden shook to corrugated boxes.
Was that like a statewide or, I guess, industry-wide thing where everyone's like, okay, on this year we're going to make the switch? Or did people kind of stagger through the transition?
It was much less expensive to use, easier to use, easier to handle, storage. Pretty much once it got accepted as a normal way of shipping produce, everybody that had any volume would switch to it. And also the way it used to be shipped, initially it was all shipped on trains primarily. And Washington State was a total regional outlet for apples. They shipped it in trains to Portland, Seattle, Tacoma, and some of the Northern California. It really was regional. And when they went to corrugated, it allowed them to use other forms of transportation to get it around.
Okay. Now they would cube out rail cars.
Yeah, no pallets. They'd stack them side to side, top to bottom. Kind of like a container in today's world is shipped,
No pallets. Mm-hmm. Huh. Okay, and so when did you come into the...
Yeah, not in 1958, I'll tell you that. I joined the packaging world back in... it's been about 30 years ago now, all told. Started off up in Wenatchee at a company that does no longer exist anymore. It was Willamette Industries at the time. It was a family-held company that hostile takeover to Weyerhaeuser. Weyerhaeuser sold to International Paper today, so it's kind of a descendant of the International Paper. My mom was worked her way up in a packing shed. She was a pear packer from the early days that I can remember, just being a hand pear packer, and changed to a couple different sheds. Got up into supervisory roles. So I have a twin brother, and
what's his name?
It's Larry. No jokes included.
Larry and Gary.
Yeah, I didn't get to choose the name or the Toughskins.
There's not a Barry, is there?
There's not a Barry, and my sister's name is not Mary. I have been asked.
But his wife's name is Carrie.
I did know
my
that.
wife's name is Carrie. Yeah, so we kept it going. So my mom would get my brother and I jobs, cleaning underneath the pear dump room or cleaning up at the end of the night at a pear packing shed. There's lots of pear wrap that gets torn off, lots of pieces to pick up. We'd start with that. Yeah, and then started at a company called Boise Cascade back in the day. That's PCA today, but just driving a forklift and unloading, loading trucks. A sales opening came open at Willamette Industries, and a good buddy of mine that was at one of our major customers there, Dovex, not Domex, but Dovex, put my name in and got me an interview and got hired and worked there for 7 years. And then somebody that I worked with at Willamette had an opening at HR Spinner. I interviewed with them and kind of learned how different they were than just a standalone box supplier. There's, we supply all the products, not just the corrugated. It was intriguing. And honestly, we were in Seattle at that point. We were looking to get back to the east side of the mountains, and the opening was in Yakima, and said yes, and been there 23 years in April.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun, huh?
Yeah.
Time flies. Yep. No,
time flies regardless. I've learned.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's been a real positive experience, and whether it's Wenatchee or here, been fortunate. I think one of the best parts about working in this industry is the people.
Yeah.
The customers,
it's totally
the ag people are just good people to work with. Fair, honest.
Everyone's trying to work towards the same goal. I've learned, so everyone's kind of on the same brainwave, I guess. So
yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're doing corrugate or apples or chemicals or whatever. Everyone's doing the same thing. So
yeah, I agree.
And so you'd mentioned you guys do more than boxes, obviously. Do you want to touch briefly on everything that you provide? I mean,
yeah. So my other job was just corrugated. You'd go around, knock on the door, and pitch them on the corrugated boxes that they needed. And when I came to Spinner, we sell, pulp trays, which the tray pack stuff goes in. We sell foam trays, pear wrap, plastic bags, pouch bags, glue, strap, tape, stretch wrap. We say, anything that comes once the fruit hits the line, anything from that point until it leaves the door in your truck or somebody's truck heading to a customer, we have a product that we sell to help along that case.
And you warehouse all of that locally and ship it same day or close enough to if someone needs it?
Yeah, interesting story. When Spinner started, there used to be 2 locations way back when. There was a Spinner in Yakima, Washington, and one was a Spinner Corp and one was a Spinner Inc. or something. I can't remember the difference, but one was in Wenatchee, one was in Yakima, both owned by separate partnership groups. Oh. And then the partnership group in Wenatchee sold to Wilbur Ellis at the time, which is still in ag chem, but not really in packaging anymore.
Interesting.
So Spinner didn't have a presence in Wenatchee forever. And then when I came to Spinner Yakima, we didn't have a position in Wenatchee, and it just seemed like a natural thing. And the board supported trying to open another warehouse back in Wenatchee. We opened that. It's been 13 or 14 years ago now. So we have a full service warehouse in Wenatchee, full service warehouse here in Yakima, sales office with one of our sales guys in Moses Lake, kind of the onion and potato industry, which we do.
Is that Brownie up there?
No, Brownie's up. Eric Brown is a sales rep we have up in Wenatchee.
Who's in Moses Lake?
Tony Webb.
Oh, okay.
So he handles a lot of the potato and onion guys, which is
He's kind of the basin guy.
Yeah.
Got it.
But so we've got both warehouses up and going. Super excited.
Nice. Well, yeah, like I said, we've been doing business together a long time. Probably too much business, honestly.
It's a matter of opinion.
But it's been good.
Too much.
For sure. So what about you? How did you...
So I started...
First time I met you was not at Spinners. So I was getting a tour of the Novalex Shields.
There you go.
Facility.
So I'm a transplant. I grew up on the west side, Whidbey Island. Came over here, met my wife, ended up here in 2007, started on the plastic side of things, which is a commodity that Spinner obviously handles. Started at Shields in 2008 as an outside sales guy. Kind of had some non-egg accounts. Kind of moved into the egg side in 2013. Handled Spinner as one of my main core accounts.
Okay, so you were selling distributors, not
correct
actual packers.
Correct. Okay. Selling distributors such as us at Spinner.
Yeah.
So I started that in 2013, made the jump in 2017. So with been with Spinner for almost coming on 7 years now. Mm-hmm. Do have some outside accounts. Have recently moved into like a director of poly and pouch per se. So just with that really spurred on with COVID times.
Yeah.
with the consumer packaging side of things, really
I remember that.
taking the spike when you don't want to touch a single apple. And I don't think that consumption has really drastically dropped whatsoever.
It hasn't, actually. We were just looking at that a couple weeks ago, and it's since 2020, it's stayed like it used to be like 80-20 bulk versus bags, and now it's like 60-40, and it's kind of stayed around that.
Yep.
It's crazy.
For sure. Yeah, and along with that, you've got kind of more fragmentation on the retail side of things. So my main goal and focus really is on kind of main retail direct communication to help to like Domex per se on kind of upcoming projects, kind of what's going down the line, sustainability.
Like how he says help.
Yeah. Assist.
Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. We're there to be able to inform retailers on if they come out with a new package idea that's kind of on the poly pouch side of things, that's sustainable. Does that work within your guys' infrastructure on the packing lines themselves?
Yeah.
Sometimes it does align with what you guys currently have, and sometimes it doesn't. So that's where we can really kind of step in and educate on what direction they can actually move into. Nice. So,
and Ben was a crucial part of setting up the PCR bag. A lot of people don't know who he worked with, but it was Ben.
Yep.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yep.
First ones in the tree fruit industry, so that was an exciting project. I think you're starting to get kind of that off the ground here. So I think that's kind of a step in the sustainability direction in a good way.
Yeah. There's some news on that too. I'll tell you when we're not live on the air.
Yeah.
But no, that was a fun project. And
that was a good one.
It was a big headache, I know, and I didn't have to deal with it because Ben jumped in and did it for me. So So I didn't know this actually, but you had mentioned it after we developed that bag. You made a comment that the resin is harder to source.
It is.
And is that just from a supply side? Is there like not as many producers of it, or why?
I think it's a supply chain. I know. So once you have to have a clear bag that goes into the PCR recycling facility to produce a clear resin pellet to go into a clear apple bag. If you had a printed PCR bag, you wouldn't have you would lose the clarity on an apple bag. So the amount of actual just clear bags in the pipeline across all industries is just very, very small. And you can really see a lot of that comes like bread bags, for example, a lot of plain bread bags in the industry. So that's where it's a lot derived from.
I remember when Coca-Cola changed the Sprite bottles, it was either 7-Up or Coca-Cola, I forget, changed from that green tinted plastic into a clear so that it could be recycled with everything else.
There you go.
I don't know if you drink Diet Coke, but get a Diet Coke these days and pop it. It's 100% recycled bottle now, it says on the site. But the clarity is horrible. It looks... First time you get it, looks like it's set, like plastic looks, it sits in the sun forever and gets kind of discolored or yellowed or something. Yeah, grab a bottle of Diet Coke and it's, again, 100% recycle, it says, and it just looks different.
It's interesting how prior to getting into this, I wouldn't have expected people to be so focused on clarity. Like with those LDPE bags that everyone has now, like they're not as clear. There's a trade-off, right? They're recyclable, but they're not as clear.
Give and take.
People still focus on the clarity. You'll send someone a sample and they'll be like, oh, it's a little cloudy. It's like, well...
It's more organic.
Yeah. You can't have everything. I mean...
And that's where I tout to people, if you look at a bag through a light with nothing in it, it's going to be cloudy. I always tout, you got to look at the contact clarity as well. You got to look full of apples and see what that apple looks like across the...
I always put apples in
the
it
plastic.
I never look at an empty
it's just...
bag. But try telling a customer that.
Yeah, and the pouch and poly, which he's headed up, it's really helped us grow that segment. It's really... Not that it was a weakness, it was maybe even a blind spot a little bit for us to see how that was taking off initially. Pouch versus traditional poly bags, or certainly versus just the tray pack bulk stuff that we're talking the 60-40 split. It was kind of a blind spot, and it's really helped, and it's continued to explode, and it's kind of evolved into now more of a sustainability topic sometimes. Consumer pack is clearly direction that we've seen that thing grow, and it's been exciting to kind of watch and how that has evolved.
Yeah, really has. Going from just wooden crates, that was it, to corrugate boxes, just domestic and exports. All of a sudden there's a euro. What the hell is a euro?
Yeah.
This will never work.
No one's going to do
Lines aren't set up for euros.
And having those relationships directly with the retailers also allows us to kind of pivot with the consumer direction as well. I mean, we've gone the compostable route, compostable, recyclable, end of life strategy, back to 100% recyclable. So we still have to be able to fit within the infrastructure of the packing lines to fit what the consumer's actually wanting, with keeping the return to grower in mind.
Yeah, that's
the
the key right there at the end.
You know what's interesting about from when I started way back when to be the old guy in the room, the SKU list of what packers need to require for day-to-day operations. When I first started, there was basically 2 varieties.
We have over 1,000.
Reds and gold. Just for you guys?
Yeah. If you count every variety, every bag, think about tote bags, mesh bags, pouch bags, poly bags, Euros, tray packs, heavy bags.
Right on cue. Yeah, we had 2 SKUs.
It's crazy.
Basically 2 varieties back in the day, golden and red. Red Delicious and Golden Delicious. Wasn't until I think, 2019 or something when Gala finally passed red as the number 1 state apple. But back in the day, it was a red and a golden. There was a tray pack version and one that they shipped export that had to be a half an inch deeper. We had 2 SKUs. Yeah. It was crazy. And now you got Euros of every shape and size, open top displays, pouch, poly, clamshells. Just about everything a consumer wants is handled through you guys. It's amazing you guys keep it straight.
Yeah.
It's hard. Brock is helping with packaging, and he's trying to learn pack codes right now. And it's just like,
oh, man.
It took me 8 years to really know it by heart, and watching him go through that process. Like, I know what it's like, man.
Yeah, I've been there before.
It's not easy. Yeah, There's a ton
It's a big
of
mountain
them.
to climb, but once you get to the top, it's a fun one to be atop of, for sure.
Yeah. So you guys were a little late to the bag program, I think, compared to some other people. You kind of touched on that. Not too late, just in time is what I would call it. Ben, I want to talk about the domestic versus import partnerships, because you guys are unique where
Good question.
most people that we work with import bags just because price is cheaper and whatnot. But you guys are unique in having both a domestic partner and an international partner. So maybe if you want to talk about how you juggle that, and if you get an order for X amount of bags, do you decide where it runs, or does someone pick? I mean,
kind of having that relationship with my old at Shields Novalex now. Having that relationship there allows us to have that flexibility and being local. I know dealing with the local growers, dealing with Domex, you kind of want to keep that kind of local mentality. Yeah. It's produced local, it's grown local, it's packed local, it's shipped local. It kind of keeps that stream moving forward as far as kind of like the local economy is concerned. Yeah. It's usually when you kind of go domestic, lead times, you have a lot more flexibility. You've kind of got the produced in USA backing for that. So it's all one domestic sourced pack that the consumer is receiving. As far as what's shipped from overseas to domestic, I mean, that's where we have the relationships with building programs with you, such as yourself. Having a percentage of your SKU base going domestic allows you guys to have that flexibility to tout that it's domestic.
Right.
If there's hot projects that come on, that allows us to pivot very, very quickly on being able to turn something around in a timely manner while still keeping that integrity of that domestic source product.
Yeah, and obviously minimum wage here is more than overseas.
Yep.
So there's a
all relative.
There's a trade-off, but the benefits you get, at least in my experience, have been worth that extra trade-off.
Yep. 100%.
It's one of my favorite little tidbits when I talk to someone who's not in the industry, is telling them that all of the bags that Walmart uses, most of the bags that Walmart uses, come out of Yakima.
100%.
I was filling out the Walmart Gigaton survey thing, and it's like trying to calculate the distance that your materials travel, and it's like, it's 6 miles away.
It's just carbon footprint reduction there.
It's just down the road.
Yeah, that's a different story than a lot of those import bags could tell you on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, throwing them on a Freightliner or a cargo ship for 28 days or something.
100%. Yeah, and just mitigates the unknowns of transit, carbon footprint side of things. Yeah, just that just-in-time delivery for
falling
sure.
Off in the ocean. That's
bring it back to the COVID times.
Yeah, it's funny because you guys were talking about COVID earlier. When COVID hit, we were deemed an essential business, just like most of the Domex packers.
Yeah, well, we couldn't ship fruit if you guys didn't supply bags.
Yeah,
so you were essential because I was essential.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, boy, wouldn't we all agree with that? So back when we were doing this, a lot of the bags that were becoming import due to COVID and the containers and getting caught in port, I think there was an increase in domestic demand.
For sure.
Then, for sure, because they were reliable. You didn't wait for them in port. Didn't wait for them to clear customs.
Yeah.
And some of that's kind of just been a residual hang on.
I think so.
In the major retailer, that to Walmart. Yeah, that's They won't allow us to run any bags anywhere
I feel like
outside the United States.
during that like 18 months or however long COVID was, I think like 25% of our orders got stuck at the port.
Yep.
Some of them turned up, some of them, I don't know.
Yeah.
They never showed
Boat
up.
anchors.
Yeah. Who knows where they are? You'd call the port and they're like, yeah, it's out on lot 2940F.
Right.
Yeah.
What?
We don't have anybody to
Go get
load
it.
the truck for you.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
a wild time, man.
Those are crazy.
Yeah, and I think it's just changed the times for the future too. I don't know if we'll ever go back to where we were prior to COVID, just due to that unknown and just the world economy that you just can't hold that risk, and this helps mitigate that for sure.
Yeah.
Another thing that's driving bag demand is all the online retail stuff.
Ecom.
Shopping, you know, like someone going onto an app and ordering their apples. You don't want a produce clerk to have to go and pick out bulk apples and put them into a bag. Just have them grab a bag. It's so much quicker and faster. So that's kind of driving bag consumption too.
100%.
You all right?
Excuse me. Yeah. I'm just thinking about a bag of apples.
What's your favorite apple?
This sounds like a Homer response.
Red
but
Delicious?
No, I've told everybody this before. My favorite apple, honestly, is the Autumn Glory.
Ah, you don't have to.
I'm not trying to be a homer.
Hey.
I've pitched it to
Stole
all my
my thunder,
friends and
buddy.
buddies. It's a delicious apple. I like it because I've been around it since they started, marketing here as a
Yeah, I think you guys
small input, and then we handled most of the packaging, and you guys did such a great job on the high graphic stuff, getting it introduced. Yeah, it's still one of my favorites. Of course, the new Cosmics and Cosmic Crisp, Honey Crisp. I enjoy those, but if I had to choose, it'd be a good Autumn Glory. That's not trying to be a homer.
All right.
Right on the coattails, my buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're good.
You can't echo that.
I know, but I just did. One of the best apple I've ever had is an Autumn Glory.
Huh.
Just to have that aftertaste of that kind of caramel aftertaste, just like a caramel apple. And
takes-
that was just a home run.
It takes a lot of work to get those flavors to develop. They have to like cut water off before harvest, and like it's
Fine
crazy.
science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. But another stranger, have you ever had an opal? I think
Yeah.
an opal's a good tasting apple,
Apple's
but
pretty solid.
yeah, it's got a funky look to it. But yeah, I think that's a good apple.
Always said if someone could get a sweet green apple, it'd
Yeah.
do well. Grannies, in terms of sales, are pretty easy to sell. So if someone could have a different tasting green apple, it'd be good.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know why somebody hasn't as skilled and as gifted as they are as crossing
Yeah, you'd
apples
think.
now and mixing them together. Why you couldn't take a granny and get that hard, firm texture and get a nice sweet flavor to
I've
it.
seen some, but you can get an apple that tastes really good, but it doesn't have the storability.
Yep.
Or it's really soft and it bruises easy. It's very rare to find something like Cosmics or Autumn Glory that, for the most part, are like average on all those different aspects.
Yeah.
Easy to pack, doesn't bruise going down the line. It can store, it tastes good. It's hard to hit that.
Yeah.
I was just watching the Cosmic Crisp breeding video. Brock and I saw that yesterday, and the guy talks about how he had like 10,000 different variants
Oh wow. I
to
didn't
like
know that.
find Cosmic Crisp. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not our side of the business. Thank God.
Yeah.
You had talked briefly about high gloss Autumn Glories. What, maybe explain to people, when someone sees a high graphic box, or we call it high graphic, but gloss box, the difference in printing between that and something that looks like an Amazon box.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to what you're printing, what paper you're using to print the box with. Usually the high graphic stuff or the high gloss stuff, it has a nice shiny appearance to it. It's a piece of paper. It's a white piece of paper. They've essentially put a thin layer of clay on it. We call it clay coated. And what it does is it allows, when you print it with high graphic printing plates, it allows the ink to stay on top of the clay coated surface rather than soaking into the fibers of the paper. So you keep a sharper image. And then the high gloss comes, usually we call it a UV varnish. It's a print to kind of lock since it can't soak into the paper. If you don't basically seal it with a varnish or a top seal, the ink could get rubbed off.
Okay.
So we put a coating over it to make sure the integrity of the print's maintained.
So you basically sandwich the inks
Yep.
on top of the paper.
The ink goes, yeah, and when you print something like high graphic, typically you have a drying station after each color. If it's a 4 or 5 color print, it prints one color, and as the box makes its way through the machine to get the second color, there's a drying station. It'll actually blow down and dry that first color before the second color is applied, the second color before the third color is applied, and so on. Because it doesn't get a chance to sink down, it just sits on top. So it dries before he puts each section.
Whereas
And we've
a-
seen There's still some that are out there that are super high graphic, but I mean, packaging is pretty expensive these days, and guys are looking at ways to get product to market without spending a bunch of money, and they've really kind of backed off on some of those high graphic.
Well, I mean, we move 20 million cases a year, so it
adds up quick.
Yeah.
Pennies matter.
What is it, like roughly like $1, 75 cents to $1 more for like that premium? Premium
it can be.
So it makes sense in certain applications, like where the Apple's going to get more dollars at the register, then it makes sense. But still, it's a issue of scale.
Well, and we saw it, recently with the Cosmic Crisp rollout. They rolled that Apple out initially, and everything was high graphic.
Everything.
Introducing the brand nationally, everything was high graphic and expensive, and we've seen that pull back in the last couple of years to get some more user-friendly versions to get out where they're still getting a Cosmic Crisp to market. It just doesn't cost them as much to get it down the road.
I personally kind of specifically to Cosmics, that I like the look of that. They did the two color.
Super good job.
It's like a retro look, but still modern, and the print's nice. And
sometimes less is more.
Yeah, well, I prefer the look of it compared to. It's ironic that we have a 2-color Cosmic and a high graphic Cosmic right there. I think Brock planned that.
Could be. Yeah.
But between the two, I mean, they both look like really nice boxes. But personally, as someone who makes packaging all day, I like the look of that one better.
Well, and we've said like this high graphic when you're looking at, it's obviously meant to display at the retail environment as a display box. So maybe it makes sense.
Right.
That when it gets to the store, they're yanking that top off, building a display in the store.
Yeah.
That box is never seen by the consumer, so
it doesn't
make sense to pull it back on that. Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Trying to think through my talking list that I had for you. Private labels.
Private labels.
Yeah, you want to get into that? Private.
Can.
Okay. So, following Gary's timeline. Sorry, I was blocking the camera with my drink there. Sorry, Brock. Gary's timeline. Going from boxes from crates to a tray pack. That was it. Private label wasn't a thing until like 10 years ago, roughly.
Yep.
And now it's like every major retailer has their own brand. You walk into a Fred Meyer or Kroger store, and it's Simple Truth Organics.
Yep.
You walk into Walmart, and it's Freshness Guaranteed or Market Side.
Yep.
It seems like all of the major ones, like at least the top 20, I would say, have their own brand. How has that been difficult or beneficial, I guess, to your business? Because I mean, I'm assuming there's some pros and cons of doing that.
Yeah, I would say just from a SKU fragmentation, like you talked about Domex having 1,000 SKUs just on your own. I mean, a lot of that's going to be attributed to a lot of these private label. It's mainly the consumer pack side of things. I know there was some private label lids that they've kind of gone away with. Now it's kind of like a shipper specific lid. But it's definitely, from an inventory standpoint, it's been a little tricky as far as going from like a Domex specific line bag that you were packing, let's say 80% of your fruit into, now that kind of getting to the 50% mark, to where the retail with the balance of the 50% is now in a balance of 50 SKUs instead of 3 SKUs. So it's definitely, the inventory management on that side of things is one of those things that we're obviously good at, but it's definitely something you got to be cognizant of.
Might be a touchy subject, but it might be good for some people who listen to this to hear. What happens in the scenario where you have that fragmented inventory and you get stuck with something if a retailer changes artwork?
Well, that's where it kind of comes back to that partnership deal with like a Domex, where we work closely with you guys as far as running kind of as good as we can get on a forecast.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's always kind of a shot in the dark. But as long as we're kind of having that communication of going, okay, when these new projects or artwork rollouts coming towards, we can kind of mitigate that by kind of reducing down or canceling orders we had to where we can have kind of a smooth transition. And that's where also having that like a relationship with retailers that I can have those conversations with them and have kind of run out transition dates to where they know that it's coming. They've got 3 or 4 months of the current, and then we're going to be rolling into that to where they historically have had kind of a hard stop to where
I was going to say it's gotten a lot better.
It's gotten a lot better. They got a lot more receptive to it. I just almost kind of due to the sheer volume and just the fragmentation of the SKUs, I think they have kind of realize that that's kind of the only way they can do that.
Right.
So, it's clunky no matter what.
It kind of really is. It's just how you...
I mean, you're never going to hit it on the head, right?
You either run out too early and there's a period of time where they don't know what to put their fruit in, or else you end up like we're going through it now with some retailers, and there's a whole bunch of it left.
It sounds really familiar.
There's a whole bunch of it left, and what do we do with it? Do you get a chance to use it up? Can you at least whittle the pile down? At a certain point, it's just going to be, unless we got customers who take billing for product they're never going to use, which is, I'll be honest, is not likely. Ends up being a cost of doing business for us, and it just goes. You can't add it to the price of the Xbox because it's a competitive world, and I can't go out and charge a customer more for a box because I ate some bad inventory when somebody that didn't eat bad inventory isn't competing for the same business. It's a sticky wicket at the end.
It's difficult on our side too, because we don't want to over order, like Ben was hinting at. We try and keep 3 to 4 months of inventory on hand, and then usually it works out, but sometimes you run short, or you get burned, or the press shuts down for a week and you don't have your new bags coming. So it's like it's very hard to find that sweet spot where everybody wins.
And nobody's ever totally happy. Either they didn't get the orders at the end because they were out. They're not going to carry inventory over, but they're not going to get the orders, or else they end up having too much stuff on the floor. And we have inventory, and also all the customers have inventory as well. So it's not just Spinner complaining that we got X amount of boxes and X amount of bags left that I can't use, I got to throw away. It's the same thing.
Just the supply chain is full.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same thing with the customers. They got inventory they can't use. It's just try to do the best you can with as much lead time and burn it down to as close to zero as you can. But it's either you're out early or you're out late. It's we can't quite get it right.
It's tough. It'd be nice if we had like 12 months to really plan.
Or crop years. Crop years.
I see a lot of
has been the best
year now,
because then you really know. Then you work with your customers. They're winding down on.
Well, and just having like an exception too, like, okay, you got 60 days to once the new one's available, you have 60 days to work through it. Like, we can work with that.
Yeah.
And kind of go back to your comment on kind of a domestic pouch source. I think that could kind of mitigate that lengthy transition period where obviously overseas you're 8 to 10 weeks. If you've got inventory that's 4 to 5 weeks left on the floor, you don't really want to reorder because now you're going to be hung with too much. That's where I think that domestic source can really come into play, to where now you've got that flexibility of a, let's say, 4 to 6 week period where you can still hit the cutoff and not stock out. I think that could be a huge beneficial point. It's good having
that flexibility.
100%.
For sure. So you got there's been a change for, people, we're in the packaging world, so we know it, but the change from a number 5 pouch to a number 4 pouch is kind of the buzz right now. Yeah. You want to explain the difference between the two and I guess the processing side of it, or?
So recycle number 5, it's both what Tyler was just mentioning is a laminated structure. So basically you have 2 pieces of plastic substrate that are laminated adhesive together to create kind of like that stiffness, kind of good looking bag within a retail section.
It's 2 different kinds of plastic, right?
As of right now, the recycle number 5 is 2 of the same substrates.
Got it. Okay.
So you're talking polypropylene versus a low density polyethylene. So the reason why a lot of these retailers are going to like a low density polyethylene is just the recycle streams within that pertinent substrate is a lot more prevalent, and you cannot recycle polypropylene. So that's where a lot of these retailers are going. Let's still have kind of that stand-up pouch to where you still have that nice visible bag that's standing up outside of like a poly bag, even though poly bags are coming back.
Yeah, coming back. They're here, man. We do more polys than pouch,
So that's where they're going towards that recycle number 4 to like the in-store drop-off.
Right.
To where they'll take those in-store drop-off bins to PCR, post-consumer recycle centers, to be able to get washed and reground back into resin pellets, which in turn reduces your carbon footprint.
Full circle.
Until we can really get back to like a blue bin recycling stream.
Are we going to get there? I always struggle when retailers, they want all of this recycle options, but we don't have the infrastructure in communities to do it. It's like, you can make a recyclable product, you can give the consumer the choice to recycle it, but they can't always recycle it sometimes. They have to take it back to the store, which it's a solution. I mean, it works, but
it's a solution. And the other solution to the side of that would be kind of aiming towards like that end of life strategy to where you can kind of go to the compostable route. Well, you're kind of running into the same issue as kind of a blue bin recycling stream and have that infrastructure in place. We really don't have compostable, industrial compostable.
It's not really
infrastructures in there yet either.
We can't even recycle glass in Yakima, let alone a number 4.
Well, if you're in Sealy, you can't even recycle corrugate. So
if you're in Sealy, you just burn it.
Yeah, but then on the when you get
cut that out.
When you get in the sustainability side of things, you also have to be cognizant of like cost of raw materials to be able to achieve what the end consumer wants. If you're talking compostable raw materials you're probably on the average of 20 to 40% above what your current structure is. So when you kind of have those conversations like Gary and I do to you guys at Domex going, hey, well, the cost of this is going to be 20 to 30%. Well, that's nice to know, but...
it's tough because like food prices right now are at an all-time high.
Gosh.
It's the highest it's ever been for families to feed themselves. And so then you go and add 20% or 25% to that same bag of apples. It's like, I understand why we want to go that way, but at the same time, we have to keep costs down to keep consumption up. Like you can't price people out of healthy food just because you want something that's recyclable or compostable. Mm-hmm. It's tricky.
It is tricky.
And a lot of people don't want to, a lot of customers aren't willing to pay that extra top for it. So either the grower eats it or the consumer pays for it.
And that's where you can really see the poly bag coming back into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have the visibility of the fruit. You can still print on it, high graphic print. You don't have the aesthetically pleasing kind of stand-up look as a pouch does, but it kind of hits all the points that you're looking at. Plus, it's a cheaper bag. Mm-hmm. It's more efficient to run through the sheds, which kind of rolls down to the return to the grower.
Yeah.
So
3 or 4 years ago, we made a conscious effort to push retailers into poly, and I think we've been successful at it for sure. We moved some big customers into poly bags just from efficiencies and cost. And you kind of mentioned that it doesn't look as good as a pouch. I disagree. I think it actually, when you lay a poly bag on a shelf at a store, I think it looks a lot nicer than a pouch. With the pouch, you got half of the bag is just a head full of plastic. Mm-hmm. You can't really see the apples in it because there's just so much plastic.
Flood-coated print.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus a nice clean poly just laying there.
Yeah. And through the warehouse too. I mean, we obviously deal with your packing warehouses, individual family. They prefer a poly bag over a pouch bag. 10 days out of 10.
They can run them twice as fast. I mean,
yeah.
And they're cheaper.
Yeah. And they're a lot cheaper.
And there's more in a box.
There's more in a box.
More in a pallet. It's just
more in a pallet.
I don't think there's anything worse.
Hard to figure out why you push poly.
Yeah.
Then once you introduce PCR to it, then you're reducing carbon footprint on top of it too.
Well, we'll go into the recycled content in boxes too, because that's been around since the
50s
they started, right?
Yeah. It's sort of been the proliferation really of recycled content as it becomes harder to find virgin material. You have to find ways to do it. Interesting about the West, people think you go out and chop trees down, turn them into chips, turn those chips into paper, and that's how you get paper. Well, that's in the Northwest. That's not how you do it. It's all byproducts of lumber mills. Dimensional lumber is where they get their chips. Recycled content for that reason is. Yeah, you're asking averages earlier. They say averages 52%, 53%. But I think a lot of this stuff we do here, we use a lot more brown paper than other markets. It tends to be higher recycled content. You get up in the mid 70s on a lot of the stuff we do here.
So this box right here, you think is 50%?
Yep.
From recycled.
And that happens to be a high gloss paper with that chemi paper we talked about earlier. But
every time I see this box, I miss it. But it's just so damn expensive. It's
hard.
High graphic.
It looks so good.
Yeah.
When we made that change, it was strictly financial.
Yep.
Because you get more returns to the grower that way. But it's like, man, that thing looks nice.
I used to like it when the Autumn Glory was packing in a warehouse. Back when every box we did for that variety
every single one.
High graphic. You'd walk in the warehouse and just like everything was high graphic. Yeah. It was like, from a sales guy, this just looks amazing. They did such a good job on the design. It's really... It's been one of the few that hasn't been changed.
Yeah, we haven't. I was thinking about that the other day.
We touched it. Yeah, we stayed with.
I actually didn't make that one. That was Eric Campbell who made that box,
and
I changed everything else but Autumn Glory.
Yeah. So the recycled content's been big, and kind of some of the changes we've seen on the corrugating's pretty easy. You take 3 pieces of paper and glue them together. What's really changed over the years, I think, with corrugated specifically, is what we often call lightweighting. It's basically for sustainability and, better use of the natural resources. how can I make a paper, one of the core components of the box, how can I make the paper stronger, but use less fiber per 1,000 square feet than I have before? That's really what we've seen. If you take
How do you do that?
there's lots of different ways. It sounds corny sort of to people who haven't been to a paper mill to watch it, but it's fiber orientation. It's when they take the paper and it's primarily water and paste and compress it and form it into a sheet, how long they keep that paper in that compression section to get better adhesion. Just better paper makers. I think everything that would be made in 2024 is better than it was probably made in 2004. Technology's come a long ways.
I've actually never seen the paper mill side of things. I've seen obviously the corrugators and converters and stuff, but never actually paper being made.
Yeah, it's to see how fast it goes, how accurate they are, how they maintain quality. They're constantly doing QC all along the way. They're doing it.
It's amazing.
They're doing it on the machine before it's even a piece of paper to make sure that the slurry, whatever they call it, is consistent with their slurry.
Is that the paste and water
That's
mix?
it's 90-some%.
What's it taste like? I know you've had it.
No, I haven't. No. Tastes like a Red Delicious now. They measure. It's mostly water, very little fiber, and they get the water out and compress the sheet. It's it sounds like snake oil when you hear about fiber orientation and extended press time. Until you see it in action, a lot of the stuff we're doing today is way lighter than we've done in the past. And these guys, as the customers or your packing warehouses have consolidated, I used to have a whole bunch of customers that packed 10,000, 15, 20,000 bins a year. Now you got 10 customers that pack 300,000 bins a year. So they're always faced with this challenge of how do I get a box that's basically right on the margin. It's going to do the job. It's going to get my fruit to market in good condition, but I can't overpay for it because I buy a whole bunch of them every year, and a penny a box means a lot when you're buying several million boxes. So it's been a challenge to keep up with that and try to make the right recommendations for guys if they're looking for answers.
And so, are you always tweaking the recipe, for lack of a better word, or you're always like trying to finagle it? Is that the right word, to like hit that spec? I mean, like, because you don't want to put too much into it if you're not getting the return on it.
Yeah. You constantly, you've got certain customers. It's sort of what they're comfortable with. Some guys will go right to the ragged edge and say, I'm going to pay the least amount I can for the box, and know
some are going to
that if it stands in storage. I mean, let's think about how we store these things. 85%, 90% relative humidity keep the fruit in good condition. Well, that's not good for the packaging. Yeah. So some of them want to get a little more closer to the edge, run it a little closer to where it's going to fail sooner. And if it keeps in there for an extended period of time, I might have some trouble with the way the boxes look, but it's worth it to me to repack a couple units every once in a while that don't look great to save the money on all of them. Yeah, there's so many factors. It's are they stacked right? What kind of condition is the pallet in? Is the pallet got all the boards on top? Pallets are super expensive these days.
Especially when you go and export. How long was that in packed fruit before it got on the container? How long is it on the container? I mean, you're talking 60 to 90 days before it gets to the end consumer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of variables there.
Yeah. And we're seeing a lot of the places now have robotic palletization systems, and they're usually stacked pretty darn good. It gives that box a way better chance of being successful than it did when you hand stack, and maybe they don't get stacked perfectly straight. But
on that note, there was an issue yesterday at one of our facilities where that new 4-inch open top that we do, they were complaining that it was kind of sagging. But then when they showed me the picture, nothing was aligned on the tabs, and it wasn't stacked right. And it's like, well, you're not using it, so it's not going to perform. Like, you're not doing it correctly, so it's not going to perform as well as it should.
Well, I mean, I got pictures from another one of the facilities the other day where the box kind of got sideways on the chain line, and another box hit it on the side, and they just folded up. It's got
I saw that
4-inch.
picture.
So oh, great. So you got a little tiny sidewall that really doesn't stand a chance against anything pushing against it.
A 40-pound box slamming into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
amazing what the small changes,
physics,
stacking wise, make on the integrity of the box. Like, if you're off just by half an inch here, a quarter inch here, or a little overhang, what the percentage of the stacking integrity amounts to at the end of the day.
It is, it is.
Because it just compounds.
Yeah, do everything else right, and then gets to the stacking stage after everything's been handled gently through the system, and all of a sudden it's not stacked perfectly, and the box tips over. It's It's a tough one.
Yeah, we have sometimes going into Mexico because it goes with the border and it gets inspected. They don't always put it back together the way it showed up. And so then the customer gets in, they're like, "Well, what the heck?
Yeah, this looks terrible.
We didn't stack that pallet.
It looked great when it left here.
Yeah.
Don't tell you.
It's wild."
Yeah.
Did you want to go over your intro again? He was thinking he kind of sold himself a little short earlier.
Well, it was pretty brief on how I got into the Apple industry and why I made the jump from shields to spinner.
No, yeah, feel free. We've, like I said, I hope you do. It was like I said before, it was not a total blind spot, but I think until we got Ben on board and really got a whole nother level of expertise.
You had no one.
It was hard for us to even understand what we weren't getting, what we were missing until we brought him on board. We were just, we relied on Shields. We relied on Ben for his knowledge when he was at Shields, and then when he came on board, it's just been a...
Yeah, because I handled the spinner account for 4 years while I was at Shields, and being able to go out to customers with you or any of the other sales guys, I mean, you can just see how special the Apple industry and fresh tree fruit industry really is. I mean, it's all about the relationships. It's all about camaraderie with Tyler and the Domex team, and that's a big factor of why I really kind of made the jump. I mean, it's always going to be an industry that's going to be needed, but being able to be an important factor and piece into delivering that fruit at a cost to the grower, to the consumer, is a pretty special place to be. So that was the main reason why I came onto the Apple side. I mean, like you said it right at the start. I mean, it's all about the people too.
So much fun.
Oh man,
to see a change.
It's kind of sad. Interesting. It's kind of sad that both of you are in my frequently contacted list on my phone. There's 10 contacts that Samsung.
Sad about that.
Hey, man.
People are jelly.
It's like wife, parents, Ben, Gary,
Chad. Wait a minute. Wait. Ben, Gary. What you mean, Gary, Ben?
Well, you never answer, so I just called.
Yeah, come on, man.
Cut that out.
Just this morning, I think I tried to call you. Just give me a hard time.
No, I know.
Ben always answers, but then he goes, "I'll get right back to you."
Yeah.
Well, it's usually on a project that you guys are always working on. I'm kind of like on the outside. I know what's kind of going on, but I don't know what he's been doing on the backside of things.
Yeah. So how big is Spinners? Like how many? I mean, I have a sense of it, but like how many sales teams and...
Oh, boy.
You have 3 facilities, obviously. Well,
yeah,
4
3 facilities. I think the sales guy total is... what is it? We got 14, I think.
Yep.
13 or 14. I don't know the exact number. We've got a couple young kids. We're sort of... We just... made a change in leadership. We got a new president on board. Kalen Dunn took over for president January 1. So we had the old president retire. It's been several years since we had a retirement before. So we've got I'm getting up there, a couple other guys my age. So there'll be some retirements coming on in the next half century or so, half decade or so. So we're preparing for that. We've got 2 young kids, just a year out of Wazoo that did some intern for us at Spinner in the summer, drove trucks, pushed brooms, worked in customer service. So when they graduated, the plan always was along to get them on board to kind of get that next generation. Spinner's got a nepotism clause, so we can't bring any of our our kids in. We probably missed out on some talent over the years because of that. We've also probably avoided some knuckleheads over the years too that would cause heartburn on the at the company. So, but we've really grown in personnel as well. We're close to 100 people now. I know one of the things I think we're going to talk about was our mechanical packaging division. Which
thank you. Yeah,
which has been a big part.
I have to say, time out. I always provide guests with a list of things to talk about, and I think I remembered 2 of yours. So
I had printed them out.
You printed them
Gary,
out?
here you go.
Yeah, I think we've crossed 2 off.
Yeah, we looked at it.
We looked
about it.
Yeah.
But machinery. So that's obviously that's huge because people might not realize it, but we receive boxes flat.
Yep.
They're not assembled, and then we actually make them on the line. So and you guys are the reason we can do that.
And it's been a huge part of what we do for 50 years. All the machines that we provide our customers, most of the customers that we have that we do business with, we manufacture machines. We put those machines on site, no charge to the customer, as long as they're buying our finished goods.
Those aren't cheap too, right?
No, the machines have gotten more and more complex. And because of you talk about the advance in the number of SKUs we carry, that's different boxes, that's a different machine.
Yeah.
So all of our own, we have, gosh, I got this number. I think we have 12 in-house mechanical packaging technicians that they're the ones that build the machines. If there's a problem, if one of the customers that has one of our machines that stops working at Thursday at 10 o'clock at night during night shift, well, they can't wait till the next day at day shift when we come in. So one of those guys is always on call to go out and see the customer and make sure the box machine's working. It really comes in handy in cherry season when it's very intense, we can't wait till tomorrow. We got to get back. We got more cherries coming in tomorrow. Machines, I think by the end of the summer when we get through cherries, we got some new builds we're working on right now. We'll be over 500 machines.
Wow.
Placed out in the field between the different markets.
In total?
In total.
Wow.
All through cherries, and some of them are just used for cherries.
Well, you've got about 75 of those probably.
You got close. There's some that are pretty cherries. Just the nature of the business with 5 kilo stuff, display stuff, Costco, Sam's.
Just the amount of SKUs you have during a short period of time. I mean, you got 7 to 10 box machines on a cherry line.
Yeah.
Are you guys ready for cherries?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've already received cherry boxes in for the season.
Really?
We put pre-seasoned in knowing it's going to be the apple crop, as we know it's a big crop year this year. Lots of stuff going on with getting those all packed, where if a customer would historically take some time off to pack cherries or maybe lay off one of the shifts to focus on cherries, may not be an option this year with the amount of fruit that's there. So we got ahead of it. We've already got cherry boxes on the floor for this coming summer. Yeah, so
sweet.
As ready as you can be.
I'm planning on changing all of our cherry stuff this summer, starting for the next crop.
New crop.
Mm-hmm. Not this crop.
New crop.
Next crop.
Okay, because I was about to say, well, maybe I'm not so ready for that. I don't know anything about
No,
the graphics,
it's been a long. We've been using the same stuff for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It just needs a new look.
Yeah,
so bags and clams and boxes, the whole thing.
Oh, how exciting! Yeah, look forward to that.
Yeah,
it's always fun.
At least I'm going to try.
Yeah,
we'll see how this summer turns out.
Yeah, and part of the mechanical packaging thing too that really drives machines is two things. It's you engineer a better box, you use less paper to get the same performance, different style box, engineer it in. Also labor, cuts down on labor as labor's gotten more and more expensive. Got one guy run a couple machines and crank them out instead of people trying to put them together by hand. So it's just kind of been a natural.
You guys looked into doing, I know the answer to this, but have you looked into doing bag machines?
Not as much as you would think.
You sell a ton of them. So.
We sell a ton of bags. We've looked into it, but have never pursued it. We've had designs made, but
there's a lot of solutions out there. I've always kind of thought that it's a natural fit for what you guys do.
Yeah.
That's kind of a hard one. I mean, you look at the bag side and like their prior conversations of where the retail industry is, kind of sustainability, recyclability, all the different packages. I mean, if we kind of go into the bag machine, auto bagging sector, I mean, we could be creating a auto bagger for something that may not be here in 2 years kind of thing. So there's a lot more kind of changeover on the consumer packaging side of things. That's where a lot of
more volatile.
Yep, a lot of the changes are the consumer pack. I mean, you got master cartons and euros, and I mean those footprints may change slightly, but not to the point of the consumer pack side.
That's a good point.
It to me too is like even walking into the shed that we're sitting right next to here. A lot of these lines when they're designed, they're huge sections are dedicated to tray pack or bulk fill.
Right.
And most of the days when you walk in, there's 2 or 3 lines running tray pack and they're shipping everything else off to a bagging section.
Yeah.
It just still, in my brain, it's still sometimes hard to imagine how far it's come in the last 10 years to where it was so heavy into tray pack and easy to pack, low cost, to now it's all bags. And sometimes you see these warehouses having to slow the sizer down because they can't bag them fast enough. It's just crazy to even think that's even a thing, but it is.
Yeah, that's most granny runs. Yeah. It goes that way.
It's kind of the nature of the beast. Yeah. That's why with the direct retail communication that we have, we kind of know the limitations of the current bagging systems now, so we kind of always try and stick within the specs of what you can currently produce. Because obviously if you get outside of that, then you're going to be in a world of hurt of slowing lines down even further.
Right. Yeah, we learned a long time ago. Yeah. For us to go to, it's like say we go to a major retailer, hey, we got this great idea, isn't this cool? And have the retailer say, man, that is cool. Well, then understand it's way more expensive for you. Right. That's just not something that I think when you're talking communicating with the retailers, bag changes, art changes,
Right.
It's
stuff
not.
like
It's
that.
not.
nothing-
100%.
It's not selling.
Yeah, we're not-
them.
we're
Right.
not-
No.
So you might want. I guess.
I guess we're
You want to
directing.
clarify
Yes.
Yeah, because we're pitching stuff to retailers that's usually in conjunction with a
Right.
Domex. Hey, here's an
Yeah.
idea. You got any ideas we could present to a retailer?
Yep.
Retailer A, retailer B, whatever you choose, and we come up together
It's always
for solutions.
funny when I'm talking to a private label person and I call them and they're like, "Oh, I just got off the phone with Ben." Oh, hope that was good.
You know.
Oh, yeah. He beat me to it.
Yeah.
Well, who's got the coolest box? Don't say me. What's your favorite print that you've seen? Could be an old one, could be a current one.
It's man, that's a good question. There's
There's a lot of old labels out there
it's-
that are pretty
right.
cool.
it's changed. There's so many I like for different reasons. If we're to say out loud, I've always thought can we talk brand names?
Yeah.
I always thought the Washington Fruit Bell logo was just clean and cool and has stayed consistent and haven't really
Been around a long time.
messed with that much. I think that's just a classy. I just have always thought it's a nice look. But there's and they've all got. It's funny how it went before where people had so many different labels where they had one for Granny's, one for Goldens, blue, red, yellow, green.
That's the first thing I
peach.
changed, dude.
And when you came on now, we got one for domestic and one for export.
It was hard to
Minus
sell
some
that
export
in
labels.
too, man.
Yeah.
Like it was everyone was so used to having a green Domex box for Grannies, having a red
Yeah.
one for Galas and Fujis and Reds and all
Yeah.
that stuff. It's like you don't.
Yeah.
They're just getting fruit to the store. Like
I know.
these boxes, like you said earlier, they're not being displayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you got it on the lids, you got SKU consolidation. Where on the consumer packs, you've just got SKU multiplication.
That's true,
I mean,
yeah.
it's
It's
just
they're
crazy
totally
how you're
opposite.
reducing
Yeah.
the amount of target SKUs versus the consumer pack SKUs.
Well, like even on the organic lid that we're working on today, like we should be putting our name on that and certifying it. It should be printed on the box, but I'm trying to figure out a way to do it to where we can just stamp that so that you don't have to carry 10 different boxes
Yep.
for First Fruits and Domex and
Yep.
CMI and all these guys.
We've already seen that. We go through a lot of that with that variety with the Form Mexico stuff. You know what
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be pre-printed. We've already
That's
now
tough.
we've got two different versions of the same box, look the same except there's an address line on one, so we can
It's-
ship it into Mexico.
The compliance side of labeling is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not the guy to be doing it. I'm not a rule follower. It's the Mexico thing. It's crazy, dude. Like,
I know.
It is.
it's the exact same box that we use for Sam's US, but when it goes into Mexico, it has to have
Yeah.
our name printed on it.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
And they take varieties that you don't take domestically.
Yeah.
So you're carrying this
Oh, we need
inventory of Golden Delicious for 5 years.
we need more of those Goldens, by the way. I'm glad you're here
yeah,
for
well,
that.
well, the timing's good. We just threw away the last ones we ran for you. So perfect.
Ben, are there any inventory concerns you want to bring up while Brock and I are in
Oh,
the same
man.
room? Where's your handout? You usually show up with a handout.
It's in Gary's truck.
He had it with him. I said, "Are you serious?"
What are you doing? I was like, dude,
This is the first
habits.
this is the first face-to-face meeting with Ben where he doesn't have his inventory handout.
He had it with him. I didn't let him bring it in.
God, that would have been good.
I recommend he not bring it in.
Nice. Are there any concerns while we're here? Should we go through an order?
It's, farming to us old heads, this farming thing has become so complicated, so cost intensive. It amazes me these guys go out and plant these acres and acres
yeah.
of high dollar plantings with no guarantee of return. They don't know if the hot variety they're planting today is going to be worth anything by the time it starts bearing fruit in a commercial way.
It takes
in 4 or 5 years.
3 to 4 years to really see what it's going to
Like
do.
these guys are
It's tough, man.
tough. Yeah. Tough world out there for those guys.
We just took out 18 acres of Fuji's and we're putting in a high strain of Honeycrisp into it.
Oh, wow.
It's not that Fuji's aren't selling well. I mean, the export market on Fuji's is crazy,
yeah.
but we just anticipate that honeys are going to do better. It's tough.
A lot of hedging.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even if you got the right variety, you still have to grow it the right way. It's got to be the right size. It's got to be the right
Location.
color. It's got to be the right, pressures. It's just, I don't know how you guys get it right.
I don't either.
I'm glad I sell the boxes when they're empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. We kind of touched on the paper demand, but we didn't really go into like Amazon and all those like online I guess, shopping really, and how that's kind of driven paper pricing. I don't think we really need to go into it, but that was one of the points.
Like kind of the industry itself as a
well,
whole.
just like how we're such a small part of corrugate and the paper market in general. Really, you told me one time it's like less than 1%.
Yeah. You look at Amazon; they had a huge impact. I mean, several years ago when they were first starting to hit that major spike.
I mean, COVID.
After COVID, essentially people shopped at home, didn't go into the stores, and Amazon exploded. All the corrugated manufacturers knew that day was coming. There was no way it couldn't at the growth curve. They said, we're going to have to build more capacity, especially in the Northwest. We have to build more capacity for Amazon. COVID hit, all it did was force that timeline up. And it happened a lot faster than they expected. So there were some capacity constraints, I don't know, at COVID, a year or two after COVID. I mean, part of the reason West Rock's building a new plant on the west side of the mountains is because that capacity was there and constrained. Yeah. But they're not the only one. Competitor PCA built the plant in Richland area, and Georgia Pacific's considering one as well. So there's other guys in the Northwest that are doing that. And part of it was Amazon demand getting sort of pushed up ahead of scale due to the pandemic.
That was a wild time, dude.
Yeah.
That was great. I know. I'm just like, oh man. Lead times were like quadrupled.
Oh yeah.
Pricing just like doubled overnight. It's just like
hasn't moved.
Yeah. It's just
don't forget these folks out here in your packing plants packed with plastic barriers between
I remember I was trying to help customers out using like plastic corrugate.
Yeah.
For the barriers.
Oh really?
Yeah. Trying to figure out how to secure these people in their one spot on the packing line.
Oh man.
Yeah. Going into customers and they take your temperature before they let you in the door.
Oh yeah, we had the front.
Yeah, there was
had a gal. Yeah, you had people out here at the gate that would take your temperature before you went in. You feeling sick? It's like, no. Yeah, crazy times.
It was. I'm glad we're out of it.
Yeah.
But we still have remnants of all that.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Thanks for everything you guys do for us. You guys crush it on service and quality. So.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for spending time with us. Yeah.
Appreciate the partnership.
Feeling mutual.
Cool. All right. Good timing.
Perfect. Yeah.